Florida Cannabis Action Network, or FLCAN, has been fighting for cannabis rights in Florida for over 25 years. We're the grassroots voice pushing back against outdated laws and demanding science-based, sensible cannabis policy. From patients to veterans, business owners to everyday Floridians, we unite passionate advocates who won't settle for less than freedom. Together, as friends, we work with a purpose. Join us. Be a part of a 27-year movement to help legalize the plant.
How are you, Jodi?
Hi. Wow. Actually feeling excellent. Let me see if I can get a video on. What do you think?
Oh, we can try it. I mean, it's Halloween. If anything's gonna go wrong, we'll just blame it on Halloween. I've got so much candy for like the 2 kids that live in the neighborhood that are probably gonna come knocking, and I'm probably gonna eat the rest of it. But are you prepared? Do you ever get trick-or-treaters?
We haven't had much in the way, and you know what? My camera seems to not be functioning.
I see you just fine.
Do you really see me?
I can see you. I can see your house. I can see your expensive ass scarf that your wonderful husband bought you in Barcelona. And yeah, I just don't know. I think we should just go with it. Life's too short to stress about podcast intros. You got to give it up. I know what you're doing. You got 2 screens going.
No, I see. No, I see me.
Yeah, you're a real person.
I am, and I feel it now. Wow, welcome to Elevated Intel and Halloween. So thanks for coming out, Cynthia. And,
I mean, I've been here the whole time.
Yeah, it was me that was missing. It's been a long week. We've been to Tallahassee and back since I saw you last time. I have. Florida Cannabis Action Network has.
It's a lot.
It was a lot. No matter where you live in the state, unless you live in Tallahassee, getting up to Tallahassee is a lot. Well, I mean, really, from most of the major population centers, it's a minimum of 2 hours.
Yeah, and it's a nightmare drive because there's nothing to look at. I would much rather fly. Hashtag
to the Bahamas.
Well, yeah, I'd much rather fly anywhere else in the world. But yeah, like Tallahassee. But once you get there, there is a bustling town. There's lots to do. There's a very big nightlife. Beautiful. There's a nice like college town. There's a lot of shopping. I mean, I can't say that for Titusville,
Right. Well, nor would we call Titusville it. No, I guess you wouldn't call it a,
it's definitely not. Resort. No, not in the slightest. No, it's not a bustling town with like eclectic mix of people. It's very one-trick pony. We have rockets.
Those of us who love you were very concerned last week as the rain came down. Are we drying out?
I mean, that's a weird thing to say yes or no to, but like the rain came. Titusville got 3 times our monthly allotment, to use a cannabis term, of rain in one night. So 15.5 inches, which means the garage flooded and the pool overflowed and hilarity did not ensue, but everything is getting handled. I told you October is cursed for me. Like this month with the squirrels eating the wiring in my car and $8,700 worth of nonsense there. Effing squirrels. I'm like full-fledged, like going to kill all of them. I got a BB gun. I started to get some peanuts that I'm going to poison. And this, I hope PETA doesn't cancel us, but I'm just not a fan of the squirrels right now. Not a fan.
Well, no, but they've done damage. And since this is Elevated Intel, did you know that squirrels will eat the wiring in your car? Because Cynthia did.
Oh, only the wiring of non-American made cars.
Nuh-uh.
Well, here's why. Because American-made manufacturers do not give a shit about the environment like overseas car manufacturers, because they replace the wiring casings with a soy-based wiring casing, which is attractive to the squirrel and rat rodent population, what have you. Whereas a Ford F-150 still has the chemical wiring housing. And so that's just not sexy for the squirrels. And so they build their nest in my Toyota 4Runner.
Oh, yeah. Cynthia. that hurts me on so many levels.
as it should.
So,
So,
wow.
but
That
everything's
would have been a
fine.
fun fact. That would have been a fun fact how had we prepared it in advance. Do you have a fun fact for us today?
Well, the fact is going to kind of go into some of the news that we're going to talk about on the national side. So I'm not going to give one. I'm going to give a bunch of fun facts, factual data from studies that will be
Uh,
surprising to those who are anti-cannabis and those who are pro-cannabis, that
okay.
stuff isn't all that bad. So what do we
Well,
have for Florida? Tell me about your
well,
Tallahassee trip.
and I think we really need to get into that. Florida Cannabis Action Network did live stream, so you can go back. A note to Steve, maybe you can go back and download the live OMMU presentations that we did. I was about 10 minutes mucking about with the camera
I
for
saw
going
that part.
live. Yeah, you sideways and
I just
twisting.
kept
That was
hearing
day two.
like the popcorn wrapper in the movie theater sound, and I'm like, and as you like tweak it and change it, it was hilarious.
Well, day two, I just gave up. Or day one, I just gave up on the tripod. I just gave up on it. It was not happening. Day two, at least I kept trying until we got it
I
right.
could hear perfectly on day two. Plus, there was actually content
Good.
on day two where day one didn't seem like it had as much.
So we actually spoke to a couple things that I thought was really important. Um, and interesting.
Okay.
On day one of the things that they were talking about was the cost of licensure and the formula for licensure. And all that I think is very complicated. We had asked to get, we were curious about the breakdown, but more importantly, I said, well, if you guys have a $60 million surplus because you collected $38 million from the OMMUs last year, why do you still need
MMTCs.
from the MMTCs? Why do you still need 1.3 million from them this year? So because really you're not taking that money from them, you're taking that money from us, patients, and not just patients, but because of the Florida program, the sickest of the sick patients is
Right.
who you're taking $1.3 million from. So they're not in a position to answer us, but these are things that they're supposed to take into consideration in rulemaking. And so we got it on the record.
Good.
The other thing that I asked is if you're going to renew these licenses, which are arguably very valuable,
Yes.
uh, then how is it that you are continuing to renew companies that aren't even meeting the minimum requirements
Good point.
of the law? They're not doing delivery. They don't have low THC
Products
products.
or any product.
So, and if they're in a situation where, they're working it out or whatever, right? Then how
Right.
come we're not seeing public information about them getting fined at the very least? Because if we're going to renew you, but you're not meeting the requirements and you're getting fined for not meeting the requirements and yet you're getting renewed, I have a public interest in knowing that.
We did talk about that. Like one of the sections of the renewal requirement is to make sure that the renewal applicant has met their statutory requirements, which would be not just low THC products, but having any product available for sale, because there are some stagnant licenses that have not actually presented to the Florida market, to put it eloquently and diplomatically, but they don't have shit. So like, what are you doing? If you're not providing medicine to the patients that are requiring it, then you are taking up space. However,
Absolutely.
we also have the litigation licenses that, that started last week, right? Where they had the hearing on the new 22 licenses, and the scoring process of that, which we already said many years ago was not fair, reasonable, traceable, ethical, all that stuff. And then we just used it again this time because, like, who's going to remember what happened in 2017? That was like forever ago. That was before
Except
Rome.
for every litigant. The other section that we really dug into as Florida Cannabis Action Network was under packaging and labeling. So the last few years, we have been talking about a bill that would take away the inner foil, the inner clear opaque package with nothing on it but the THC symbol from like your gummies and your edibles.
Edibles, yeah.
That internal is redundant packaging. If you might want to do it, but once you get that inner package away from that outer package, you are starting to talk about trace and track. How do I know which is which if they get mixed up? And it was interesting because we were kind of at odds at that point with some questions, some comments that had happened just before that, where they had said, one of the MMTC was like, "Oh, well, can we just do away with the insert? You know, we'll
The
put it on a
patient
QR
insert?
code." Yeah, the patient insert. We'll put it on a QR code. And
Okay,
so I got
with a COA. That's fine. Let's do it.
and that I said, well, we've gotten a little I said, if you were even going to consider this,
Yeah.
doing away with the insert, we've got to make sure that the insert and the COA are current. We've gotten a little lax about making sure that just a little lax.
Just a little lax. That was
Yes,
very
yes.
appropriately phrased.
And I said, I want strong warnings on cannabis that has been remediated through radiation or ozone. I said that cannabis is a portion of magic and science, and right now it's more magic than science, and we really don't know what that radiation is doing to the medicine. Now, it may be just eliminating 5 little tiny cannabinoids that look like they don't mean much, that are really the whole ball of wax. And we don't know. But
Right.
I should have a choice as a consumer to decide whether I want to have a product that's been irradiated or not. Just
Right.
like I have a chance. But if I'm not informed, then I can't. One of the MMTCs, God love her, said, "Oh, can we do away with inputting all of the plant inputs into the record book?" And that was exactly the opposite of what I said. And what I said was, we should absolutely know or be able to find out all of the inputs for the life cycle of my medicine.
Do you think like the genetic integrity of the lineage of the plant back to seed? So like, I mean, that would be awesome. In a perfect world, I would love to know.
Cynthia, I want to know whether or not
made.
they're putting soil. I want to know if they're putting sulfite in the soil. Because if they're
Epsom
using
salts,
Epsom salts in the soil, I'm allergic to that. I'm going to have an adverse reaction to that medicine. And if I'm new, then I'm going to think I have an adverse reaction to the medicine, not that medicine.
Okay.
And I really had fun on day 2. And thanks for the folks that are watching Nick Goulet, or Gargoulet. I apologize, Nick. Thank you.
Gargoulet, my Florida green.
Cynthia, say, because she did it well. He said hello, and it's good to see you too.
Yeah, we talked earlier this week about his lawsuit, and I think he's going to become a member. He's the only person I've brought as a member of FLCAN. So I'm working him over on that one, but he said he was interested. So put me for a checkbox on one person.
We're doing our best to represent patients. On day 2, when it came to the production of CBDs and edibles, I did suggest that they approve CBD
as an additive.
As an additive, yeah.
I did see that.
Felt like I was kind of going out on a limb.
And what was this this MMTC push for wanting to offer food to patients?
I was so happy with that.
I think it's adorable. No, super cray adorable. But what I'm wondering is, when are they offering food to patients?
It comes up in a couple different situations.
Okay.
You are opening a dispensary in South Florida on a Saturday morning at 9, and at 8 a.m. it's 95 degrees, and you have 25 people standing outside, and you're not allowed to offer them water.
You can offer them water.
No, you cannot.
Why not? I've seen it done in person. Water is in the regs. Water's in the regs.
We can look at it again. I will apologize. It is my understanding that they're not allowed to offer any food and drink. And so you're
Food, no.
thinking water might be
Beverages,
okay.
they have to offer water. They put that in the regulations as far as you have to
Mm,
have a location that's private to speak to a professional about your medicine. You have to have a
right.
bathroom. You have to have a separate waiting area from the dispensation area. Can't all be in one. And then your secure storage. And then you can offer water/water bottles, no food, no flavored beverages, no cooler of variety. It's just a water, usually a water tank with like little cups right there because it's supposed
So
to
a
be a
drink.
medical environment.
So we have run into this because some of these MMTCs have quite a bit of space.
Oh yeah.
And we have created 3 classes, of course, as FLCAN members would know. We've got our Cannabis for the Curious, which is kind of our lunch and learn. And
Mm-hmm.
then we've got the oh, for goodness sakes, the
Buds
safety
and
meeting.
brunch. Oh,
The safety meeting. You
yep,
participated in one of our
I did.
safety meetings where we looked at products together and what they do and what they claim to be, right?
Oh
What they
yeah, that
claim
was
to
at
be.
the Legion.
That's exactly right. So we've run into issues because the MMTC said, well, you can't bring in outside food. So, it's Florida. If you don't bring in outside food, what are people staying for?
Right. What's
Snacks
the
and
point?
water. They're not going to stop. Here, have a bottle of water and stick around for an hour with me, would you please, on a Friday? It's just not the thing. So I was glad they got into that. Um, and the other thing I really wanted to get into, and I wish I'd gotten into more, was dosing limits. But I shout out to
Yeah,
Alex Johnson and Carla Ashburn from our Florida Cannabis
they
Action
killed it.
Network leadership team, representing patients in doctor's office, talking about the caregiver and the background screening and how
Mhm.
cumbersome that process is. And I was really glad to get on the record about families with multiple children.
That was an
That
interesting point that a lot of people hadn't considered. For sure. I did bounce some questions off of Nick earlier this week about his
okay.
practice. And I know I bounced those same questions off of Carla with her practice because I was trying to figure out with the patient, with the caregiver background screen, like what is the worst that could happen in the program. So I talked to Carla and I said, like, let's say, for instance, there's an older gentleman that has a caregiver and, he has his allotment and he comes in for his renewal. Okay, and you ask a question like, oh, how are you enjoying the flower products available in Florida? And he's like, well, I actually don't do flower, but you can see on his allotment that it's been exhausted. That would
Oh,
show somebody exploiting not just the elderly
right.
community, but their caregiver status by siphoning medicine from a patient to where God knows where. That's a pretty bad situation. But besides that, I can't think of, and which would be incredibly rare. I can't think of any situation where somebody would, you can't charge to be a caregiver. You're doing it for a loved one. It doesn't matter what the relationship status is. I would probably take care of you, Jodi, before I took care of some of my family members, which I've said many times. And so if I couldn't do that because we weren't related, that would be odd. But I just feel like it's a way to grab the people that maybe made past mistakes and say, hey, we're still going to punish you. Even though you served your nickel, you served your time, you've been rehabilitated, but we're going to punish you just like the patients with the revocation of their cards.
So, this really is something that we need to get into. When I was doing my search, I started kind of doing a little bit of a dive into arrests. So, of course, one of the most recent things that happened in marijuana in the state of Florida is the implementation of through the OMMU of the revocation of patient cards if they have had a violation of Section 893, which is Florida criminal statute. So as I was kind of playing with that, we had maybe 3,500 people who were arrested for a marijuana conviction in 2024, which is where the data would be coming from. So last year,
Mm-hmm.
um, of those, the majority were misdemeanors. but it still made up 39% or 29% of all misdemeanor arrests in the state of Florida.
That's
So,
upsetting.
when you think about how far we've come, and to still realize that a third of the arrests are still for marijuana, that's just kind of blows your mind. Um, and more importantly, there's 160 people who, since that law have been implemented, are at risk of losing access to their medicine.
Yeah.
And, Carl Ashburn, thank you very much up there, saying that, we're starting to really get between a doctor and his patient. And that's the relationship that we need to continue to be paying attention to. And I think that dovetails into the dosing limits. It probably could have done better on the dosing limits besides scrap the whole thing, start over with new testimony. But really, the guy that was the doctor, the practicing physician in that, he really did believe that if you were using any THC, you were drug seeking. Of
Right.
course, they're low. So
It's
I
an
don't know what will
arbitrary,
come of it.
ambiguous set of numbers that was manufactured out of a ragtag group of prohibitionists and probably a little bit of Red Bull. So,
A little
like,
bit.
they all just need to calm down and look at the data and give it back to the patients and the physicians and leave us alone. Like, seriously, you're doing too much.
Well, and I love one of our past vice presidents, or actually our founding vice president, has moved back to Florida. He went, and I'm going to out him, a little medical information, went and got his card last night, and bought pre-rolls and was kind of happy to celebrate how far we've come. And that really is
He
something
balled
to
out on
celebrate.
some pre-rolls.
He did.
He's like
So, but
wilding
but
out at the dispensary on some pre-rolls. Okay, yeah.
I picked up some pre-rolls recently, and it was interesting because I was turned down on flour. I was going to get some pre-rolls and some flour, and I've run up on my allotment. I can't have any
Isn't
more
that
for
embarrassing? It's worse
two
than a
more
credit
days.
card getting denied.
Two more. It was 5. I'm sorry, you don't have enough for both your
You
marijuana joints
you can
and your
have this
marijuana.
tiny pre-roll instead.
Well, I'm not gonna say where I bought it, but I started consuming one of the pre-rolls, and I don't know if it was dirt or fuzz or dust or whatever, but it gagged me, choked me, gagged me. It used to happen when a cat hair would get in it, or you'd leave your pot jar open and get a little dusty. Obviously, you're not a prohibition girl, but it used to not come in hermetically sealed containers.
I thank you for making me
Honest.
feel super young, but I don't know what I would do if somebody's cat hair was in my weed. But second,
Uh,
it's problematic if
okay.
anything, like in the medical program especially. I don't tend to cough that often on flour like I did before, but I also now appreciate the, ice shelf in a water bong more than I
Right.
did when I was younger, and like the utilizing some of the features of a bubbler appropriately and not just, and cleaning it regularly. But I digress. How the pre-roll that made you choke in a very like BDSM fashion. Um, did you finish it? That was the only thing you could purchase,
No, no, of course I didn't finish it.
right? No.
It was no, of course not. I'm not doing that. No, and I'm not taking it back.
Oh yeah, that's
That's
a good one.
ridiculous.
You can
I'm
always
not.
return your medicine and feel like a
Yeah,
complete a-hole
three.
when you
I
get
I
there.
took I took 3 puffs off that joint, and I'm gonna stow it back in its original container, and maybe I have the receipt so that I can take it back. Eh, but
No.
anyhow,
Well, I
uh, the
I
OMMU was. I was glad we were there, and I
yes.
hope that we did a good job of representing the
I think you did
patients.
great. I think you did great. And I'm glad there was people there that weren't necessarily direct stakeholders, like just MMTCs and ancillary support businesses and attorneys and lobbyists, that there were actually advocacy groups and patient focused groups, because they need to hear all of that. Even if they don't respond when you say, I have a question, where the hell did you get this stupid number about patient allotment? And they're not going to say, oh, well, we had this really big think tank. No, they just put it on the record, and then that's it.
You said groups. I'm looking for who the other groups were. Florida
Okay,
Cannabis Action
Florida
Network was
Can
in the
was the
house.
only patient advocacy group,
That
singular,
spoke up. That spoke
yeah,
up.
and attended. So you have to show
That's
up,
it.
speak up, and refuse to put
That's
up
right.
with all the bullshit. I do have
That's
some
right.
Florida news for today, and
Tell
it's
me
in a
more.
circle. So you got to stick with me. You know, when I get in these rabbit holes that
Here we
like,
go.
yeah, it's like full Alice in Wonderland. So Smart and Safe Florida, we have talked about them ongoing, week after week, show after show, episode after episode, about some of their ups and downs. And this has really been like a roller coaster for them. We talked about them currently, fighting with the Secretary of State, I'm sorry, for the signatures, invalidating their 200,000 signatures. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Well, now we have
Right.
another wonderful lawsuit to talk about, because Smart and Safe, back in June, they had already surpassed the threshold that they were required to
Right.
have of 220,000 signatures. Now, this activity, this is the minimum threshold. They had way more. This activity traditionally would trigger a couple of subsequent activities before Supreme Court review, which we've talked about. The legally mandated financial and judicial review, when you hit that threshold, has some steps. So during review, the Division of Elections director, her name is Maria Matthews. Okay.
Okay.
She would have to confirm the petition had met the required threshold, and that would then prompt the Secretary of State, Cord Bird, right? Okay.
Right.
And we'll talk about how he's involved with the governor. So he would have to then submit to the Attorney General, James Uthmeyer, right? A section
Right.
15.21
We know how he's involved.
letter.
We've used that name before on this
I'm
program.
name dropping strategically so that I can tie it all together. But so the director of elections confirms the petition, sends off a little side note to the Secretary of State, Mr. Byrd, and then that gets submitted as a section 15.21 letter to the Attorney General, Mr. James Uthmeyer. I love saying his name, and I like to pronounce it that way. Which would then hand over that language to the Supreme Court.
Right.
Okay, for them to review and approve and look for, is this clear and concise? And is this a
Right.
single subject?
subject.
Right, as you know. So if it honors the single subject rule and it's clear and concise, then, they're going to hash out a few things. Well, this is something.
Unintended.
Oh yeah, I do that a lot. Yeah. This is something that Smart and Safe is alleging has not happened yet. So if you think about this, the signatures to instigate this procedure were submitted back in June, and this has not gone through the required process of her to him to letter to them and all of that. And why would you say that? Like, we know for a fact that James Uthmeyer, the Attorney General, the Secretary of State, Cord Bird, are both very much intertwined with the DeSantis
Right.
government cabinet, right? Like they are company men.
Was Cord, do you recall if Cord was elected or if he was appointed?
He was actually the chief of staff for DeSantis. And yeah, wait. He appointed Bird. Chief of staff was Uthmeyer. So he was appointed by the governor, 100%.
So yeah, and it makes me kind of sad because when he was in the Florida House, this would be Cord Bird. We got to know him a little bit. He's kind of a guns guy. That's his thing. And of course, Florida Cannabis Action Network. If you've watched the show before, you know that we're instrumental in the gun case that was recently decided at the 11th Circuit Court, and that's being stayed right now.
We won that shit.
On the Supreme Court. We won that. Yes, we did. We won that shit.
Now they're doing takesies, backsies.
Well, I'll tell you what, I had a great meeting this morning on our next lawsuit, and it is fabulous. I am thrilled with our next declaratory judgment, and we're going to have some business members that are going to want to get involved in it too. We're naming names.
I love the smell of litigation in the morning. I mean,
Great.
Don't try and
That's
take our guns or our weed because we'll sue the shit out of you.
right.
And yes, that should be
We
our
are
new
leaving.
slogan. Let's wordsmith it a bit though.
We will leave no stone unturned to get you your marijuana.
I just
Get
want to
you
sit on
your
the front porch
cannabis.
and smoke a joint while holding my Starbucks coffee and a firearm on my pajamas.
I
And
think it's
nobody
fair.
says anything to me.
I think it's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, I'll allow
I
it.
think it's fair.
So, this activity that is obviously spurred the smart and safe people to sue the shit out of them. They are
And Kurt
urging.
said he hasn't. I mean, it wasn't they think he hasn't. He
No,
said
has
this
not.
is absolutely clear. So I was really surprised to learn that there was a second smart and safe story, but I'm thrilled that there is.
I mean, it
Hey,
sucks
I'm thrilled.
because they've been through a lot with last year and all of that. It looks like the so because none of this has happened, their attorneys have filed a and I wish I had Benny here right now, but writ of mandamus, I don't know Latin, which is a request for a higher court to make government officials do their damn job. It is a push to say you are required to do this activity and we are the court. And so if you could, here's a letter, a writ of mandamus or whatever, and please make them do their damn job. So they have filed for that. And I hope that we actually see some activity there because October 14th, Smart and Safe filed the lawsuit against Cord Bird over the invalidation of 200,000 signatures. However, since they were way over that threshold, they can't use that as a reason for not doing this activity, which is required. If they challenge the state law that makes it more, they're challenging the state law that made it more strict for citizen ran ballot initiatives to even be started. Okay, so that's another hiccup. And then we've already talked about the ties to DeSantis, but to be honest, like this paper chain of command that has been in place for forever, for them not to do that, there's got to be a stronger course of action, in my opinion. They're blatantly not doing it.
And I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned about this. Governor DeSantis said that he is morally opposed to adult legalization. And it's interesting when you start to talk about being morally opposed to something, that justifies all kinds of bad behavior.
I'm morally opposed to his haircut, but like I'm not going to be.
No, if you were morally opposed to it, that might give you the incentive to take justifiable actions to correct it outside the law. If you were morally opposed to it, you would be finding his barber.
Exactly.
You would be.
So I stick by my statement. I'm going to find. Okay. No, but this Jodi's right. When you go and you say stuff, make statements like that, or you put out data that is tiered in a certain way, it provides misinformation and it goes rampant. So in February 2025 poll showed bipartisan support in Florida of legalization at 67%, while the Florida Chamber of Commerce poll said that support for legalization was only at 53%. Obviously, they have pushed for prohibition and not allowing legalization, but their data is not matching up with other people's data, which will lead me into our fun fact for the day, but not before I go to Massachusetts.
And they're about Massachusetts.
So Citizen Ran Ballot Initiative in Florida.
You can do what you want, right? If you got enough money.
If you want to change the law in Florida, you have like very little options and you can, there are options and Florida Cannabis Action Network will teach you about every single one of them. But like a regular run of the mill citizen ran ballot initiative is pretty much the one way that you can change the Constitution. And it's very expensive. If you don't have the money, you can't play. But in Massachusetts, there is an alternate universe where there is a prohibitionist group that has a citizen ran ballot initiative to restore, recriminalize cannabis. We'll say that. They are trying, and they've been caught doing some nefarious behavior. Their signature or petition signature gatherers have been putting different cover letters over the petition saying like, please sign this petition for affordable housing. Please sign this petition for same-day voter registration. And people are signing it, finding out later that it is actually to restore a sensible marijuana policy, backed by the Coalition for a Healthy Massachusetts, which I think that it summarizes to arse in there somewhere, but I couldn't get too far into it. But they got caught. One telling people that didn't have the cover letter, they weren't that bold. This is a petition to make sure that kids don't go to jail for weed. Okay, that's because you're going to recriminalize it and you're not going to send just kids, you're going to send adults too. Or this is a petition for stricter testing to make sure fentanyl is not in cannabis products.
Oh.
And people are like, yeah, that sounds delicious. I'll sign that all day, every day. So yeah, I mean, this is blatant. These are signature gatherers from the like opposing side, facing some of the same issues in Massachusetts as we have with citizen ran ballot initiatives here in Florida. But this is, I mean, crazy. That's like really bad. What are your thoughts?
I think that it's dumb stuff like that is the reason that we have the Division of Election Integrity in Florida.
Ooh. What's
right?
SAM stand for again?
Sensible approaches to marijuana. And
whenever
and
the
really
word sensible is in there, or the word, sensible marijuana policy or healthy, there's some key buzzwords where you know that they're about to take our medicine away.
We have to watch out for that. Well, and it's just so fascinating that we've got Massachusetts that is trying to, and it's not really the people of Massachusetts. It's not in Massachusetts. It's a small, well-funded group. People polling at 53%, even if it is only 53%. Hello, this is a democracy. That's a majority.
It's not a super majority.
Well, that's
what they were
Florida.
highlighting.
Super majority is something you have to have in Florida. But how you read these things make a world of difference. And I think that my little bit of study this week was in recalls. In Florida, we have a recall system for the marijuana and the hemp products that are on the shelf. There's a recall requirement. Now, how in the world we're going to do recalls in the market, I think all of that is extremely suspect.
Have we done one yet?
Well, that's an interesting question, and that might be a better question for someone who's not me. I've not seen one. Have we done one yet? Okay. So how many products were recalled?
I have no idea. I just know because I was a part of it. I was one of the peoples that bought the products.
You bought the product. Do you remember what it was recalled for?
Microbiological contaminants.
So,
and that's about as much as I can say right now. But why do we not know when recalls are initiated or when product integrity has been compromised and patient safety has been compromised?
Well, and one of the ladies at this OMMU hearing said that she'd like to see us go to a system of recalls similar to what the FDA uses, where there's a level 1 recall and then there's a level 3 recall. And so I started to do a little bit of digging into what that might be.
Yeah.
And level 1 might be a little bit of an ingredient was left off a label or something like that. A level 1 is going to be salmonella or listeria. And I thought, wow, I probably don't want every product recalled for a typo.
Right.
They left something off the label.
We talked about this last week, remember, where they had the enforcement, they were the products that were made by the third party, and they didn't have the permission slip on paperwork to be making products, and so they were recalled. And you called it out for being a clerical issue when it wasn't a safety issue.
Right. And so I am still on the recall thing. Very interesting. But I think the other one kind of goes into some of your fun facts and dovetails into what you were talking about before, and that is how we look at something. 53%, the chamber is pointing out that's not a super majority, but 53% is a majority.
Majority. But the Florida Chamber of Commerce putting out right after the what was the group? It was the, I guess they didn't have the group. It just said a 2025, February 2025 poll showed bipartisan support of legalization at 67%. So it crosses the aisle, Republican, Democrat. You could break it down further, but that makes sense for when we passed medical use with 73% in the state of Florida. The bipartisan support, as you broke it down by county, was, I mean, amazing. It was like even, it was equally as loved by Republicans and Democrats
As
across
it
the
is.
counties. Now, some counties were way higher and some were lower, like Alachua County, I think was one of the highest for Amendment 3 that did not pass, but damn, did they try.
But we like our weed in
I
Alachua
know.
County.
Thank you, Alachua.
Gainesville green for a reason. So you wanted to get into some fun facts, and
Well,
we'll
usually I
wrap up
have
with
my
our
fun
fun
facts
facts.
to cushion the blow of the bad news, right? But instead, I have some multiple fun facts just on the national scale because, like we said, it was not a busy cannabis week. And so nationally, the fact is legalization of cannabis does not increase crime. Now, we all knew that in our heart and soul of souls, but we actually have some supporting data, and it's pretty comprehensive. So from 2000 to 2019, with another follow-up in 2024, there was a national study. Now, don't even ask me what it stands for because I didn't look this up, but the NBER, which is probably national something, something, something.
Okay.
They were looking at data across different markets and they wanted to see long-term historical data. So if you look 2000 to 2019, 19 years plus a follow-up in 2024, that's a 20-year study proving that drug-related arrests have fallen and convictions have fallen substantially. Now, to get more granular, Colorado, 2012 to 2019, arrests for marijuana fell 68%. Okay. In 2020 to 2024, historical low of marijuana arrests just completely like eviscerated their numbers. Historical lows for since 2012, essentially. They dropped 68%, and then it's just nominal. So like Washington State, 82% reduction of cannabis convictions, and now near 0% today. So 2023 possession, in 2023, possession convictions near zero in Washington State.
So what about ancillary crime? Are we still seeing other is it?
Well, there are two sections that they didn't talk about. And there is one interesting fact about one market I want to bring up, Los Angeles, California. In Los Angeles, they forced hundreds of marijuana dispensaries to shut down in 2010. The reason I can't even speculate, but they compared that data because this was right in the middle of their study. They compared the data of crime when these dispensary locations had shut down in specific areas, and they wanted to see what would happen. They said that the closed locations versus the ones that were allowed to stay open, crime had gone up around the closed stores and then immediately dropped when they were able to reopen, which is crazy to think about. There was absolutely no increase in crime due to legalization efforts nationwide. There is no significant, but however, there is a significant decrease in opioid dependence and mortality rates. That is quantifiable. The two areas they did not cover were traffic. So the study did not include traffic violations or issues of impairment, which we already know has a lot of problems to quantify or to, define. And the other one, they didn't see a big change in racial disparities, and enforcement persisted, unfortunately, with different groups of people, which is really upsetting. That although we can see a huge decrease in crime, we can see that cannabis does not make your property values decrease. Okay.
Right.
They do not make your kids more, you know, I guess, vulnerable to crime or gang violence or anything else. Like cannabis is the cause and the cure of everyone's problems, apparently, in all of these markets, but it does not cause crime. And if you have dispensary locations in your area, you cannot and can no longer say that that's going to adversely affect you, because it looks like it's not. They also got as far into it to say that law enforcement was able to solve more crimes in areas of legalization of cannabis because their attention was not spent on low level bullshit offenses for small quantities. They were able to focus all of their energy on catching the serial killer that was like,
Thank you.
you know, the ponytail bandit or whatever. But
Well, I wondered where you were
It's
going to go
crazy.
with that. Thanks for that.
I know I could have gone a
I
lot of places.
Well, I kind of was looking at some of that too, because as I was doing my research for this show, and again, I've kind of been touching base a little bit on how interpretation, 53% is that, oh, it's not enough, or is that, oh, that's great. And it's all in kind of how you spin it, right? A couple weeks ago, there was a article that came out about cannabis driving and cannabis in the blood of people who were dying in car accidents
Actively
and
dying?
actively dying. So it was one of those horror story articles
Yeah.
about how many people are now have cannabis in their system in legal states. It was a horror story, and
Right.
I'm always digging into some of those. It was done by my alma mater, Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. So I had it playing in my brain. So I went and looked at it a little bit deeper, and their hypothesis had been that uh, legalization would not impact the number of people who were driving and were involved in fatal car accidents in legal states.
That sounds
And
positive.
it does, doesn't it? And that was their finding. They
That
found
everybody
that
has weed in their system when they die?
in that a lot of people, that 50% or 53%, whether it's legal or not.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, hey, if you word the study a certain way, I mean, I could tell you edibles only start working after you talk shit about them.
That's right.
That's a fact.
So
It could be a
I love
fact.
your fact. There you
I'm
go.
just saying
We're gonna
it's the way I
steal
phrase
that
it.
one next
It may not be necessarily true. It may be taken wrong, but it is in my world true. Start talking shit about
time.
edibles and they'll kick in immediately. Now,
Yeah,
if they
it has
say
been true to your
everybody
experience.
who's been dying in a car accident has weed in their system, they'd be like, so? Like,
Right.
I don't see the problem with that because no matter what, they cannot judge impairment at all. And weed is one of those things that gets stored in the
But
lipids and it
the
wants to stay in your body
the
forever.
article was, splash. 50% of people in legal states. Of course, they didn't say the second half, and 50% of the people in illegal states.
They
So,
said in an article last week that I was reading, I was going to bring it up on the show. They talked about mass shooting events, and the shooters that are responsible all had cannabis in their system. Now, they didn't talk about all the other crap they had in their system or all the other issues that they faced, but they said that there was a big chunk of these active shooters and these mass shootings across schools and different arenas and they all had one thing in common: weed in their system. And also a couple other things I would say, but they don't mention
the
it.
depressants and uh
Yeah, mental health issues or
and
access
drugs. Wow,
to
what about the
gun.
drug that it says
World of
if you're
Warcraft.
having if you're on this drug and you're having suicidal tendencies, don't have anesthesia. Holy, holy. All right, Cynthia.
Wait,
It's
isn't that a fact
what-
about cannabis, though, that cannabis users tend to come out of anesthesia and Novocaine treatment quicker? I think that's actually true. My dentist told me that when I had my root canal, that
interesting.
I had to get a couple extra shots in that area because I was starting to feel things sooner. So
Interesting. Well, I don't know.
no fact-based
Another
info
another
on that one, but I'll get to it.
another another fun fact from Florida Can. No, we'll find that out. Fascinating information. It's going to be another busy week with Florida Cannabis Action Network. We have folks going back to the Capitol in Tallahassee
Oh
for
yeah.
Committee Week 3. This is Treasure Coast, Brevard County. So thank you to the ambassadors that are traveling with us to Tallahassee. We've got some sponsors that are coming on board for our January 15th Cannabis Lobby Day. That's going to be spectacular.
You get to see weed
Uh,
in the Capitol.
well, you do. And, I'm very concerned about the misinformation that we've been talking about a little bit.
Hmm.
And one of the best ways to fight that misinformation is to share programs like ours. And actually, I did a little research. There's not a lot of programs out there right now like ours. There's not a lot of podcasts where people are talking sensibly about cannabis and talking about the cannabis news of the day. So make sure that you forward ours. If you hear somebody saying something and you just don't think it's true, just like, terrorism or whatever, if you see it, say something. If you see something, say something.
Oh yeah.
Because we can't allow ignorance to continue to go unanswered. And when we have people like the governor who are morally opposed, it means we're going to have to be that much more vigilant in making sure that the truth gets out there. And so we'll be counting on our listeners and our viewers and our friends and our family to make sure that the truth gets out there. What else are you thinking before we close up, Cynthia?
I'm morally opposed to him taking that Medicare money and using that for an anti-cannabis campaign. But what I want to do is I want to do a follow-up on where they are with that investigation
Okay.
because that's something that's very easily able to be swept away or under the rug or kind of like, look at this, something shiny over here, squirrel kind of thing, and
Right.
totally forget that I siphoned money through my ladies nonprofit and to exploit the industry. So I think we should get an update for the listeners on that one for sure.
All right,
And
we'll see next
yeah,
week. We'll do
have a
that next
great
week.
Halloween. I'm going to go teach kids about
Yeah.
life by asking them, what are you supposed to be? And giving them candy. Life lessons at my house. Come on over.
There you go. What kind of candy are we giving out?
I got all of the everything because I need to make sure I will eat it afterwards. So I didn't know how much candy prices has gone up. I've been always away for Halloween and this is be the first time I'm here. There's 2 kids in the neighborhood and I bought them bike lights for their bicycles. So like I don't have to give them anything, but I think it'll be good to post up with a chair out front in my next door neighbor and like ask them, what are you supposed to be?
What
Oh,
are you
really? Is that what you are? And maybe
Oh
they won't come
my.
around again.
Oh no. We only bought 2 kinds of candy this year. We bought paydays and $100,000 bars. I
Are the
am thinking
paydays for
across
government workers?
paydays and $100,000 bars. You have a happy Halloween. Thanks everybody for
Thank
watching.
you.
We'll see you next week at 4.